Alright, so just ran through this build for Warwick, where we were using Cruel Experiments, Wicked Harvest, and Scales of Judgment. But let's do a build breakdown and go into other potential build options for him. First, just taking a look at his constellations. He has 3 versions of Eternal Hunger, where your allies gain +1/+0 for every X times you deal damage. For the first one, it's 7 times, then it goes to 5 times, and then with the 6-star, it goes to 3 times. Additionally, with the 6-star, you get when allies kill a unit, they get fully healed and get +0/+3 in impact. Other things that are important to note, you, from the 2-star, get Blood Hunt in your hand automatically, and if you already have one, you reduce its cost by 1. So this is just another way to get 2 instances of damage. And Wounded Prey, his 4-star, when enemy drops a unit with 2+ health, you deal 1 damage to it. This is really strong for getting more instances of damage, especially if you have the Eternal Hunger 3. Also, from the bonus stars, these are all really good for him. So the Star of Legends, giving your support champion Ravenous Hydra, which deals 1 damage to all enemies. That can get you a lot of damage instances. The Blood Hunt having Mana Potion, so it starts out at 2 cost instead of 3, really good. And especially for the spell-based builds, this is really strong. And then your spells you acquire in Adventure have Pyromantic Wake, so they deal an additional 3 damage. Really good, especially, again, if you're going for the spell-based build. More damage to their Nexus, and it will scale with your spell power. So let's look at some of the other builds we could do, or ways we could do this build. Starting off with this, Cruel Experiments, we're mostly getting the Overwhelm here. The additional damage we take, counting towards both our Warwick level up and our Eternal Hunger, is very nice. It's worth it for us, but we can definitely substitute this out for things like Beast Within. So this is another form of Overwhelm, also very good. Or if you don't have that, then the Troll King's Crown can also be an effective way to give your entire board Overwhelm. You're going to be scaling up a lot of attack power for your entire board, so having some way to push that damage through, even if they have blockers, is really important. So I highly recommend, if you're going with more of an attack-based build, where you're just trying to maximize your instances of damage, that you take some form of Overwhelm, one of those sort of 3 relics, to get your whole board to have Overwhelm. Then, if you don't want to hit your own units with Wicked Harvest and you're worried about removing your own board, you can always use Ravenous Hydra, similar to what the supports get. This will just do damage to the enemies. You won't get, like with the Wicked Harvest, you're more likely to kill stuff, which will trigger, if you have the 6-star, it'll trigger the bonus health and bonus impacts. So that's really nice. You will typically not be killing stuff, and you won't, I don't think, even if this does kill stuff, I don't think it gives you the triggers the way Wicked Harvest does. I don't know why that interaction works that way with Wicked Harvest, but it does. So just keep that in mind. Then also a easy replacement for Scales of Judgment is the Stalker's Blade. This can even be better in some cases than this, and you could also replace Stalker's Blade for Ravenous Hydra, so you can run multiple instances of this. This is also quite strong. That way, whenever you drop him down, you're getting additional strikes on multiple units, plus you can strike an enemy that's damaged when you drop him, so you can get an additional strike that way, potentially striking 3 times here. Really strong. This is a very viable, just blue relic build here. You can also do things where you are using, like the, what is it, Guardian Angel thing? Yeah, this one. You can have things where you try to, keep him alive, and if he dies during trades, it'll kill him, resummon him, strike something. So this can be another way to just keep things going, because he doesn't have a ton of health, especially if you don't have his 6-star. It can be very viable to use something like this instead. If you want to go with more of a spell-based build, then I highly recommend using Big Guns. You can also use Ludens, so this will help increase the damage. Then things like Echoing Spirit, This will get you more copies of him. Like we mentioned before, his Blood Hunt, if you have the bonus star, it'll be reduced to 2 cost by default. And then if you have additional copies of him in your hand, those will be 1 cost, so you can potentially cast it multiple times, dealing damage with that. That can be quite effective. You could also alternatively use, just one of these, and then you also use like the Grand Generals. So this is also very viable for what you can do. I suggest using one of either Ludens or Big Guns if you are going for the spell damage based build, both to scale that damage and to just make sure that you're able to hit through tough to get more instances of damage in to start scaling that Eternal Hunger more. So yeah, I highly recommend that. Of course, for Echoing Spirit, the main thing you're trying to actually get out of this, beyond just the additional copies of him, is that reduced cost. So if you don't have that, you could run Chameleons, but that's, you're not getting the cost reduction then. Probably better off running something like Chemtech. That way you get duplicate versions of all the spells you're casting once you're at 6+ mana gems. So then this will be more of, spell-based. You're just trying to get more instances of damage. That can be quite strong. You can also always, with a spell-based build, you can use the Archangel's Staff if you're feeling like you're not having enough mana. That's also always an option here, so you can think about that as well. There are other sort of weird things you can do with him, just if you're trying to get more damage. You can have things like this, where you use the Grand General's counter plan. In this case, you would not use any extra damage, but you could just use like warning shots. If their base has tough, this won't work, so be aware of that. But you can essentially sacrifice him whenever you want, as long as you have a copy of him in hand that you can play. You can get another strike based off that, more warning shots. You can throw those at their base, get more instances of damage. That's sort of like a gimmick build. I wouldn't highly recommend it, but it's something you can mess around with if you want to do more spell-based, just random instances of damage and just scale off that. That is something you can do. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's too much else. There is, of course, because he's 3 cost, you can do the standard of Oath of Guardians plus Star Gems. If you are doing this with him, I would suggest, hopefully you have the Nasus Relic. This would be even better with it, and then you use a Star Gem. So you only get 2 cost reduction in this case for your champions that you're drawing, but you will get more strikes with all those champions, which is very strong. So being able to remove more stuff, these will scale more with all your, extra damage you're doing, so you can get a lot of removal and stuff this way. This would again be more of a striking based build rather than the standard, or rather than not standard, but the spell based build. You can go either way. If you want to focus on Warwick's combat, because you are getting a lot of power through the Eternal Hunger, or typically you can use things like Cease and Desist. This, you're often going to be at 10+ power. You would typically wait to drop him till later in that case. Drop your small units, do more damage, wait till he's at 10+, and then drop him. Get a lot of removal that way. You strike something, and you get a free attack in. You can also use Chosen by the Stars to this also, getting that 10+ power. Then you're getting Regen, you're getting Challenger. His level up has quick attack, so typically if you're dropping him with 10+ power, you've probably leveled up already, or you will level up when you drop him, because he'll strike for 10 damage. So this can also be very strong if you're just focusing on that. One last option that you can sort of build around is the Deadly Harpoon. This is a nice way to get +2 damage. You can also use like Champion's Purse or something else that gives you +2. Then you can use Starforged. So this can get you extra mana gems to start. This is a little less complex here, but the nice thing with this is you get the depths from below, which will give you course, Pike in here. And because Pike, normally it's really hard to scale his attack power, but with Warwick, you can scale all your units' attack power quite a bit just by doing more instances of damage. So this can be a very good removal tool if you want to mess around with this. It's not very consistent to draw this, though. You only get 2 copies of it in your deck, so it is a bit harder to build around, but it is something you can mess around with Warwick. There is some synergy there. Normally, I never suggest this Deadly Harpoon for almost any build, even if you're trying to trigger Starforged Gauntlets, just because the 2 Death from Below, both of these end up being dead draws for you, so it's actually sort of a negative more than it is a positive to use this. But for Warwick, this is does have some potential. So I think that's about it. There's other things you can mess around with, but these are the main things that I think are reasonably strong for him. So hope you enjoyed, and we will catch you in the next one.